Hi, this is Cathy with City Farmhouse Studio, and today I want to talk to you about the knit Summer Breeze top. It is a great summer top, great to lay over a dress, great to wear over jeans or leggings. It's just one of those that's easy to wear as a casual top or dress it up for a great time out. The yarn that it is made out of is the Premier Cotton Fair. It is 317 yards, 290 meters out of a 100-gram ball. It is a 52% cotton, 48% acrylic, size 2 fine yarn. The colorway that I used is Succulent. I've really enjoyed this yarn. It knits up really easy. It's very soft. There's just a little bit of sheen with that acrylic in it. It just really has a nice hand and nice drape. Definitely recommend it. Definitely will use it again. I did purchase this at Michael's here in the States. So with this video, I will show you the cast on and how to increase to get up to the bust line, and then also these short rows that go around the neck. I'll discuss about how to pick up for the sleeves, and most importantly, how to do that crochet edging around the neck, sleeve edge, and hem. If you don't like crochet, give it a try. If not, you can always do an I-cord or even a couple rows of purl, reverse for the stockinette, or a seed stitch. So you got some options. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, so to start on the machine, I already have my waste yarn and ravel cord already set up for my desired number of stitches. If your panel size for your front or your back, they're the same number of needles. If they are too wide for your full bed, half each panel. So do the right front and then the left front, and you'll just repeat the decreases on the mirror side. So there are instructions for the right side of the shoulder and the left side of the shoulder. You would just be doing the full right shoulder bind off, knit from the bottom up, do the left shoulder and bind off. So hopefully you're familiar with that. Instead of 2 panels, you would have 4. And then, yeah. So have my waste yarn, I have my ravel cord, row counter is set to 0. My main tension on my machine is set to the dial that I need to meet the gauge. And to start, you just E-wrap, and all that is taking your yarn and making like a cursive E around each needle. So I wrap counterclockwise, and you want it tight enough to stay on, but not tight enough to where your first row that you knit won't be able to go through it. So I wrap around the latches that are open, and that just gives enough space for it to slide off as it knits. So you go all the way down. I am just doing a smaller sample of the garment as a sample for this video. All right, and then I'll take that straight into my carriage, pull the slack, and then I want to make sure these are all behind the latches. There we go. And as I move it forward, my machine is set to knit those in hold. Make sure I still have tension on the yarn, and then the pattern will tell you to knit so many rows just straight, and then it will tell you to increase on each side of the garment, and all that is that previous loop from the row before on each end. You're going to pick up and bring that up onto the next loop, or sorry, the next needle. Put that under. And then you knit some more. And that you can see how your increase is made. If you are doing just a half of your body panel, you'll only be increasing on one of the sides, so don't forget that. And then I'll have you repeat it so many times, knitting so many rows, and increasing again. And then you'll get to a spot that says for you to mark where your shoulder, your arm opening is. And how I do that is I just take my end needles out and I save little leftover bits of yarn. And I just drape those out over the open needles and knit one row. And those just pull down to where you can then see where that opening is. It's even on both sides, it'll mirror the back, and you don't have to count, measure, or have one narrower than the other. And then whenever you're done, these just pull out super easy. So once you have your sleeve markers in, I'll have you knit some more rows, and I'll have you end with your carriage on the left. And that is to begin the shaping of the neckline on this side of the bed. So with that, you want to make sure your carriage is set to not knit needles in hold position. You're going to pull out all the right needles, and then it has you bring out needle 1 and 2 on the left side of the bed, and these will begin your neck shaping. So then when you come across, your yarn floats over those needles and hold, but you want to take that and go under that first needle. And what that's going to do is as you knit back, it wraps it so that it'll be knit with that needle in hold, that loop previously on it, and it will prevent a hole opening on that row where you get the steps going up for your neckline. And then I'll have you add more and repeat your wrap. And you'll do that for so many times, pulling 2 needles out, and then I'll have you do 1. You'll wrap those. And as you get further and further away on the left, remember to move your carriage far enough to trigger the row counter. Learn that the hard way. And then you'll keep repeating, just adding 1 at a time for so many. And the pattern tells you what the row counter should be, how many needles should be in hold on the left side of the bed. So it's really easy to make sure you're in line with the pattern. Once you finish all of those repeats, it'll have you knit a set amount of rows straight for the shoulder to just continue up the neckline. And I add a weight so that I get tension on that inside working needle. You just knit back and forth, and every so often move that weight up, because otherwise this will hold that stitch from knitting. So then it'll tell you to increase your tension by 2 for your bind off of your shoulder, those needles that are just still in work. And on the LK150, each step is an increment of a half. So you need to go 4 clicks to be an increase of 2. You knit 1, and that is to get that loops large enough for you to do a crochet bind off. If you prefer, you can do a waste yarn bind off. Just take it off, unravel cord and waste yarn. And then whenever you have all your shoulders done, you can graft those stitches together and not have a seam on your shoulder. It'll look continuously knit. That does require more handwork, so it is up to you. And then you just continue, bind off, cut the yarn, or you can leave it on if you want to leave it on for seaming. And then when you go to your other side of the shoulder, you just start a new section of yarn. So we're done with those. So there you can see a nice increase for your neckline. Now we need to work on this side of the bed. So you transfer it over. I want to make sure I set my tension back to regular. And I'm going to reset my row counter. And it says to keep all the left needles that are currently in hold, but I want to move back the right needles to working position, except for those center 2 needles to start the hold section for the right side of the needles. Again, if you were working your garment half and half, you would have just gone up to that section to begin the left side of the neck, but this time work your right side. And I'm going to knit 1 row and repeat the same instructions on this side. So you go back and forth, adding needles into hold. Wrapping the yarn. All right. And then once you get all of your needles for the neckline in hold, you'll continue to knit for your neckline, that straight edge that we did. Okay, now again, I'm going to increase 2. Knit my 1 row, and then bind off this side. Okay, so I've bound off both edges of my shoulders. You can see it's starting to make a little shirt. So I want to leave my carriage to where it's at the same tension, but I do want to move these levers to where they will knit the needles in hold. And then the instructions will tell you to pick up so many stitches on each side of the neckline. And that is to knit into those stitches, those edges that were straight. And this helps whenever you do your end. See, I did 5. Crochet or edging treatment to give a nice finished working edge that's equal, treated the same all the way across around the neck line. So I'm going to again knit just one yarn, one row. All right, and then just take those off as a crochet bind off. These you will want to bind off and not take off on waste yarn. Remove my waste yarn. And there you can see the beginning of the sweater, the little top, your neckline that has a nice crochet edge to begin your crochet around the neckline. Cast on edge. How great those stitch markers work for knowing where to begin your sleeve opening. So once you have the front and the back done, and those that have done 4 panels, go ahead and seam that center. You will again need to look at the sleeve needle opening. If your panel, again, does not have enough needles on that bed, go ahead and hang your sleeve on and do 1/2 at the time, and then you'll have to seam in at the shoulders and the sleeve together. For some sizes, go ahead and seam your shoulders from your front and your back together, and then you can hang on both sides, your full amount for your sleeves, and knit that in one go. It just, they come out the same, but we'll have less seaming for those that can do it all in one go. All right, and then I'll show you how to do your single crochet on a little different sample that I did by hand. Off my neckline, which is up here. And then I went ahead and sewed up my little bitty sweater, almost a little tube top. And I am down at the bottom edge. And I have kept my yarn live. I did not bind off, but you can do this with a bound off. You just start with the slip knot. So, where you loop over, insert your hook, and pull up. That's your slip knot. So you either start with that in a new piece of yarn or continue on from your seaming. And I have a crochet hook G, and I use the ones by Susan Bates. They have a little bit of a flat edge. This is a size G from Boy, and it has more of that arrow shape. And I have tried these. I've been given a whole bunch. I think I inherited a lot from my great-grandmother. I cannot work with these one bit. I get tangled, I drop the yarn, I can't work with them. So I prefer the Susan Bates. So if you are trying crochet and you're having trouble with one hook or the other, try the other style. Usually you know somebody who crochets and they may have a style that you can try out. If not, they're fairly inexpensive to buy a plastic one or even one at a time. So it's worth trying. So to do the crochet edging, I have my loop. I'm going to go into my first stitch, kind of that first eye hole below the 2 from the cast on. And I'm just going to pull up 1 loop, and then I'm going to pull a loop through that. And that is a single crochet. So just like knitting, crochet is pulling loops through loops, except instead of having all the live loops, you just have the 1. So again, I'm going to go into my next 2 strands, pull up 1 loop, and pull through 2. Go through my next 2, pull up 1 loop, and go through the 2. So this is all you would do around your neckline. You would go into each stitch and just go around once. So I'm going to go ahead and finish going around for my little mock sweater, because on the sleeve edge in the bottom hem, you will want to go 2 times around. And it's a very simple way, but I know some people kind of get a little confused. Okay, I've made it around, and you can see where those 2 loops make from my beginning. If you had the slip knot on your hook at the beginning of the single crochets, you'd be able to see that knot. Now to go ahead and go from the second one, I'm just going to go ahead and just like you're knitting in the round, I'm going to go all the way around, just right after 1 in a spiral. For this pattern, you do not need to turn your work to go around. And you continue pulling up, going through the 2 loops. So just like your bound off edge, you have the 2 loops at the top. You go through, pull up 1 loop, go through the other. Pull up 1 loop, so you have 2 loops on your hook. You want to pull 1 loop through both of those to complete the single crochet. So I'm going to look back. So I'm coming up to the edge of the row. This is my first stitch from where I started. So I'm going to make 1, 2. So that completes my round. And now I'm going to go into my slip stitches to finish off my project. All that is, again, just like a single crochet, you're pulling up 1 loop, but instead of pulling another one through, you're going to pull that straight through what's on your hook. Go into the next stitch. Again, those 2, under those 2 yarns, pull 1 loop and through the loop on your hook. So this is a slip stitch. And what this does is give a nice little curved rolled edge on that single crochet. Just kind of makes it look a little bit fancier. You don't have to. You could do an I-cord bind off. You can knit, instead of continuing picking up, and instead of knitting stockinette facing this way, knit a few rows the other way for a nice curled edge. Do a couple rows of seed stitch just to give a little bit of a binding to counteract the curl of stockinette. Whatever you want to do and whatever makes you happy is the right way to do it for you. All right. So I am coming to the end. Remember, you can see that's my single crochet, and that's where I started that turn, starting to curl over. So I know that's my first slip stitch. So I need to do one more to finish it out. Now I'm going to go back into that first one, pull up a loop, and that binds it all off. And then I'll pulled one loop through, and I'll cut that. To tie that off, and I'll weave in my ends, and that is your edging for your sleeve hem and bottom hem. And just one row would be of single crochet for your neckline. So it's a nice, simple detail. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this pattern by City Farmhouse Studio and wear it as much as I do. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any other great patterns from City Farmhouse Studio. Thanks. Bye.